There are two types of audit procedures, namely tests of control and substantive tests. We can break down substantive tests into tests of detail and substantive analytical procedures. In this clip, we will look at the relationship between these three procedures. In practice, tests of control are always done first. It is important to note that auditor's report does not make reference to the operating effectiveness of internal controls. So, if the auditor's report does not provide an opinion on the internal controls or make any references to controls, why does the auditor have to test the controls? The answer relates to the effect that tests of controls will have on substantive procedures. If the tests of controls are effective, the amount of substantive procedures that will need to be performed can be reduced. Remember that the tests of controls are performed to determine if the controls are operating as intended. The controls that are tested by the auditor are generally controls that are intended to prevent, detect, or correct material misstatements in the financial statements. Substantive tests are performed to gather evidence that there are no material misstatements in the financials. So if the tests of controls are found to be effective, it means that the controls that management have in place would prevent, detect, or correct misstatements in the financial statements. As such, the auditor may be able to place reliance on this and reduce the amount of substantive testing. However, the converse is also true. That is, if the controls are not effective, there is a greater risk that the financial statements may contain material misstatements, and since the controls cannot be relied on, the amount of substantive tests to be done would be increased. The relationship between substantive analytical procedures and tests of detail are based on the same premise. That is, if the auditor is able to perform substantive analytical procedures, the amount of tests of detail can be reduced. The inability to apply substantive analytical procedures would require the auditor to perform greater tests of detail. In practice, the aim is to try and reduce the amount of tests of detail, as these procedures are time-consuming for both the auditor and the client. As such, they are expensive and can significantly affect the audit fee. However, where the risks of material misstatements are high and tests of controls are ineffective or substantive analytical procedures cannot be applied, the auditor will have no choice but to perform extensive tests of detail. To recap, where tests of controls are effective, the effect would be a reduction in substantive procedures. When substantive analytical procedures can be performed, the amount of tests of detail can be reduced. Remember that the converse for these relationships are also true.